Welcome to beautiful Seattle, and welcome to some typically beautiful Seattle weather. But more importantly, welcome to the second generation version of the R1S and the R1T from Rivian. Now I know what you're thinking, Tim, those don't really look like second generation cars, but trust me, even though they're virtually indistinguishable from the versions that came before, these new R1S and R1T are re-engineered from the ground up, giving you better range and better performance, even better off-road capability too. I'm going to walk you through all the details, and we're going to hit the road and the trail to see just how well these new R1s perform. At the core of the second generation Rivian R1S and R1T, you'll find a few different upgraded battery packs, including a new lithium iron phosphate standard pack that still delivers 270 miles of range, or an upgraded max pack that will now cover 420 miles in the R1T, that's up 10 miles from before. Updated motors provide up to a whopping 1,025 horsepower in the new quad motor models, and there's an entirely redesigned series of CPUs and an in-vehicle network connecting it all together. Rivian says this new simplified system eliminates most of the components you see here and a whopping 44 pounds of wiring, including an entire wiring harness. So how do all the new motors, new batteries, new technologies transfer to the road? Quite well, I'd say. We're in the R1S right now, and in the previous generation R1S, the ride quality of it left a lot to be desired. It was either too stiff on one end or too floaty and kind of disconnected on the soft side of things, depending upon where you had the suspension set. Now it definitely feels much more engaging on the soft side of things, but it also feels a little bit more controlled and a little bit less punishing on the hard side of things. So ultimately, it's a nice blend. They've done a nice job of changing the spring rates and the damping to make it feel more controlled, but a little less punishing. It still can be harsh if you're in sport mode, but ultimately, it's still kind of an aggressive off-roady SUV, and so I think that's in keeping with the character of the car. In terms of performance, well, we're in the dual motor performance model right now. So one step up from the total bottom tier. I'm going to put it in sport mode here, and as I get around a corner, we'll give it a quick acceleration test and see how it feels. Pretty good. It definitely feels quite good. And again, this is only the dual motor edition. There's the triple motor and then even the four motor edition on top of that if you really want a lot of speed. The quad motor edition, which will do 0 to 60 in less than 2.5 seconds, which is nice, but honestly, it's a little bit quicker than I need my truck or my SUV to go. So overall, definitely nice improvements on the road that you can feel. And Rivian has also updated the sensor package as well to make this a safer car on the road. We've now got 11 high-definition cameras, some of which are up to 4K in resolution, and they have HDR as well, which will mean they'll do a better job of looking at tricky lighting conditions, either at dusk or bright light in the morning when the sun's coming up, that kind of thing. So it should do a better job of identifying the cars around you in a 360-degree view. That eventually will result in some more advanced driver assistance systems down the road, but right now what's available in the car, it is a little bit basic. We spent some time on the highway earlier, and I was honestly a little bit disappointed with the performance of the R1S there on the highway. It did a good job of identifying traffic and keeping a good distance for adaptive cruise, that kind of thing, but it struggled sometimes to keep the car centered in lane, and though it can do automatic lane changes, now you just hit the turn signal one way or the other, and the car will look for an opening. In situations where there's a little bit of traffic around, it got confused and kind of aborted at one point and kind of vectored back into the middle lane again, which was a little bit disconcerting. So certainly not up to the level of performance that we've seen from assistance systems from Mercedes-Benz or BMW, for example, and you cannot yet take your hands off the wheel even on the highway. But Rivian did say they're working on that technology. They're monitoring data, they're tracking and learning from driving from a lot of Rivian drivers already, and that is on the roadmap that will be coming eventually, but it's not there just yet. Now, in addition to the new driver assistance software and all the other software controlling all those other systems down in the systems below here, we've also got some new changes to the user interface experience, which make things look and feel a little bit more fresh. Now, starting in navigation here, which looks pretty much the same as before. If I zoom in far enough, I get some 3D buildings. And as I zoom out here, I've got a look at chargers, what's available around me, that kind of thing. That's not new and exciting. What is new, though, is if I go over into the drive modes, I've got this cool new cel-shaded view of the vehicle. This is different than before. It looks a little bit like Automodelista, if you remember that game on the PlayStation 2 about 100 years ago. Automodelista! And this is all being rendered in 3D. If I use two fingers here, I can scroll around and get a perspective. And as I go from one mode to the next, it actually changes the view to match. So this is going to swing around and it shows the car being animated. If I go into sport mode here, it cycles around behind me and showing me on a racetrack. It's really not that important. It's kind of silly, it's kind of useless, but I do think it helps to add a little bit of freshness to a vehicle that ultimately is pretty much still the same looking both inside and out as it was before. But there is some new functionality here as well. They've added Apple Music and Atmos support is coming. And I got a demo earlier of a full 360 encoded sound system, a song through Dolby Atmos. And it sounds incredible. The new sound system in here is really, really good. They've also added Google Cast support so you can stream media from your phone to the touchscreen here, including services like Amazon Prime and Max, only while you're parked, of course. But unfortunately, there's still no Android Auto and still no Apple CarPlay. Rivian is drawing the line, saying they want to control the entire software experience, and they do not want to have those services running in their cars, which I think is a very unfortunate decision. Starting on the trail in an R1T at the moment, and I'm in a base model R1T dual motor, basically the cheapest model that you can get. It does have the upgraded Adventure tires, so a little bit more tread there than you have in a normal car that you might drive throughout the showroom. But we're in a pretty aggressive course here, and this thing is doing fantastically well. It's unfortunate it's been raining a lot here, so a lot of this terrain is filled with water, so it kind of looks nice and smooth, but let me assure you, this is a pretty aggressive terrain that we're going over, and this thing is doing really, really, really nicely. It's open differentials at either end, which means theoretically when you get either wheel up in the air, it would just spin up. But this is doing a really nice job of modulating grip across the tire, basically relying on the brakes to make sure that you don't get too much wheel spin when one or the other wheel is hanging up in the air. And as I'm going through some pretty tough articulation like now, the truck is just moving right ahead smoothly. And that's, I think, one of the biggest upgrades over before. With the changes that Rivian has made internally with the reduction in the number of CPUs and basically reduction of the communication that has to happen in the vehicle to talk about things like wheel spin on one end so that the motors can react accordingly. It can react to 20% quicker, which just means that this can maintain more momentum and just keep going over some of this aggressive terrain. It's actually really impressive. It's really smooth. And it just inspires a lot of confidence that, again, even in the most basic R1T out here, it's doing absolutely no problem at all. So we're going to go through a really deep puddle right now, and that's going to lead us right into a steep incline with some advanced articulation. Splash into the puddle. Here we go, straight up. And just a little bit of hesitation there. Oh. But absolutely no problem at all. This is really great fun, and it shows that you don't need to go for the triple motor or even the quad motor to take this thing off-road and have a really good time. So at the end of the day, I'm actually really impressed by just how improved these cars are, even though, again, they look exactly the same. Off-road, the R1T felt even more smooth and capable than before, all thanks to the software and the circuitry improvements, while on-road, the new R1S is substantially improved. The ride quality is so much better than before. I'm still really bummed that there's no Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and Rivian says that's not on the roadmap. That, to me, is a mistake. But overall, though, these are great updates. That they come at no additional cost is really good news, too. So overall, thumbs up for me on the new R1S and the new R1T. All right, that's everything from here in Seattle. I want to know what you think. Let me know in comments. Do you like the new R1S and the R1T, or do you think Rivian should have maybe changed up the look a little bit? Let me know in comments, like and subscribe, and check out Engadget.com for a whole lot more.